If you don't have the stomach to watch or read about blood, violence, and gory details about murders in general, this case may prove to be a stomach turner. I couldn't bring myself to read some of the details initially, skimmed over them as much as I could, but if I was going to tell her story, then I had to digest the details. It is baffling what true evil a human being is capable of. Hard to imagine what it would feel like to know the person you trusted the most is taking your life, and there is nothing you can do about it. Did her life flash before her eyes? Did she regret choices she made that got her there? And should she have left the relationship sooner? These are the questions running through my mind as I relive the gruesome murder case of Shraddha Walker. Welcome to my channel, everyone. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment. Let's get into the video. It all started when Shraddha Walker met Aftab Poonamwala on the dating app Bumble sometime in 2018 in Mumbai. She had just graduated and had joined a call center. Incidentally, her soon-to-be boyfriend was also working in a call center. They went on a few dates, and with similar study and work backgrounds, they were drawn to each other. After dating for some time, they decided to move in together in 2019. Living with a man without marriage is still frowned upon in certain sections of society. As expected, Shraddha's family didn't agree with the decision. Firstly, Aftab was of a different religion. He's a Muslim and Shraddha a Hindu. So they were apprehensive about cultural and religious beliefs, especially in a traditional society like India. Another objection they raised was that Shraddha hardly knew her, which turned out to be accurate in hindsight, finding out all she went through during their relationship. But at the time, she was adamant to have her way. She was financially independent, and there wasn't much her family could do to change her mind. Shraddha's parents were separated. She eventually decided to move away from her family's home she shared with her mother and brother and move in with Aftab. Her father did try to talk her out of it, but didn't work. After her move, she was estranged from her family. Whether they were against the live in situation or the interfaith relationship was the main cause, it's hard to say. They may not have completely cut off contact, but the relationship was strained. And it remains so even as her mother passed away in 2020. It appears that Shraddha barely had any contact with her father after that. Her father last spoke to Shraddha in 2021 and urged her to get away from Aftab since he sensed his daughter seemed unhappy with her life. Their life together started on a happy note, but this happiness was short lived. Once the initial attraction wore off and realities of life kicked in, they started to fight. There were disagreements on who will foot the household bills, who will do the daily chores. It seemed like arguments and fights were always around the corner for these two. They disagreed on most things. To make matters worse, there were trust issues. Shraddha didn't trust Aftab. She suspected he was cheating on her, which led to more arguments. As time progressed, the couple were constantly fighting. Some of the neighbors reported that their fights were constant and loud. As it happens in relationships sometimes, one person expects more than the other is able or willing to give. I feel Aftab was not fully committed. He had made promises to Shraddha that he was not willing to keep. The personality, Shraddha was a happy, confident, and generally an outgoing girl. But she changed around 2018-19, according to her friends. She became more subdued, quiet, and started to skip out on activities she used to enjoy, like theater or hanging out with her gang of friends. She became more secretive, didn't share much of her personal life with them anymore. Her friends noticed this change in her and assumed life changes had brought on this new version of her and respected her boundaries. As time went on, this relationship became a burden on Shraddha. She was subjected to physical violence by Aftab by this time. She kept it a secret for as long as she could, but once it became unbearable, she did share the details with some of her close friends. Also wrote a letter to Mumbai's Vasai police station in which she states physical abuse by Aftab, and this letter is dated November 23rd, 2020. According to her, this was not to be a live-in relationship indefinitely. Aftab had promised her marriage and so on. His family were privy to their relationship. She doesn't mention her family in this letter, but his family were aware of the abuse she was being subjected to. And that's not all. Shraddha in this letter writes he had threatened to kill her if she kept up her demands of marriage. And he had, in fact, explicitly told her he will cut her body into pieces. She also says the abuse has been happening for more than 6 months, but she was scared to go to the authorities before. I will post the letter right here, and if you're interested, you can pause the video and have a look. It doesn't seem as though there were any consequences for Aftab as a result of this letter. I haven't found any reasons why he was allowed to go on, but he was. And as a result, something really, really bad happened to Shraddha in the coming months. In May of 2022, Shraddha and Aftab moved from Mumbai to Delhi for work, rented an apartment in South Delhi's Mehruli area, and were settling in. Things had been tense for the couple for some time, so they looked at this move as a new beginning. At least Shraddha did. They had plans to fly to Mumbai on 18th May to finalize the move of their shared possessions from Mumbai to Delhi. As usual, they couldn't agree on who will bear the cost of this move. So they didn't make it to Mumbai on the day. As was their pattern, they began to argue. This was around 8 p.m. on 18th May. Aftab says topic of marriage came up. There are suggestions that it was Shraddha's budding friendship with another man. Whether it's true is debatable. We may never know the real story of what happened that evening. Whatever the cause, they had a huge row or something. It ended in him strangling her to death. Fit of rage, he claims, but that is in dispute as he had told her multiple times he would kill her. He later confessed this was not the first time. A week before the actual murder, during one of their fights, he had planned to kill her. But she got emotional and started crying. He was gracious enough to spare her life for the time being, postpone her eventual demise. What came after made this case one of the more gruesome murders I have ever come across. He kept her body in the apartment for a day till he came up with a plan to dispose the remains. Then he went and bought a chef's knife, a butcher's knife, which are specifically made to cut through meat. And another thing of relevance here is Aftab is a trained chef. He had worked in a five-star restaurant for a time, and this experience helped him dismember her body into many pieces. He also bought a 300-liter fridge to store the body parts, paid 23,000 rupees through his credit card. Then he went to work on the body. He meticulously dismembered the body into pieces. Some reports say 35, some say less. He made sure to dismember in a way that would make it difficult to identify if and when they are found. One report even goes so far to suggest he charred the face, stored them in the fridge for 3 weeks, used perfumes, incense sticks, and room freshness to get rid of the smell. He did the dismemberment in the bathroom of the flat, kept the shower running to wash off the blood. Took him 3 days to finish with the body. 3 days while he slept, ate, and even brought one of his dates to the same apartment. Are you disgusted yet? I know I am. Then he bought cleaning supplies to clean up after. It took a lot of water to get rid of the blood, as he used more than his allocated free water per month, which is around 20,000 liters. His unpaid water bill of 300 rupees is used as an evidence. Neighbors told the police Aftab regularly checked the water supply tank to make sure they had enough water, even though none of them ever had any shortages. Once he was done, he wrapped the body parts in a black foil to store them in the fridge, but took the foil off while disposing of the parts to avoid suspicion. I'm assuming he feared detection of his own DNA on the foil if police were to get hold of it. After being the self-proclaimed crime show fanatic, had gathered enough knowledge to get around the system for a while at least. I do believe he convinced himself he had the perfect plan. If the police sources are to be believed, he confessed to searching for foolproof ways to dispose the body parts without rousing suspicion. He also searched for ways to dismember the body, what kind of knife to use. He allegedly got ideas through crime shows on how to preserve the body parts after dismemberment, how and where to dispose them. He also kept a pretense that Shraddha was alive by posting on her Instagram. He was pretending to be her on her other social media. Since Shraddha was physically away from her friends and family, they could not check up on her. He also kept her phone switched off for the most part. Shraddha's estrangement from her family made it easy for him to keep up the pretense for as long as he did, which is for about 6 months. Her father, in his statement, said he wasn't even aware that Shraddha had moved to Delhi. He thought she was in Bangalore. He was made aware of the situation only when Shraddha's friend contacted him after not hearing from her for months. It gets even more horrific, and I had to push myself to keep reading. I can only imagine what family and friends and people who knew Shraddha went through when the gruesome details of her death in its entirety was revealed to them. Aftab, in his confession, says he minced the liver and intestines before disposing it off in Chhatarpur forest area in Mehroli. He would go after midnight to dispose of the body parts to avoid detection, and he threw them all over the Chhatarpur forest area. Some have been found, and the search is still on for the rest. DNA tests have been conducted on the remains using her father's DNA for comparison, and they all have been found to belong to Shraddha. Murder happened on 18th May. He was caught on CCTV in October of 2022, making trips to the forest in the early morning hours. Allegations are he had the remains concealed in a backpack. He made total of 3 trips in the month of October. In one of the videos, he allegedly has a backpack and another bag in hand. Police believe that he had the body parts in those bags. They suspect he was carrying head, torso, and hands in the October 18th video footage. He then disposed the murder weapons, a saw, a chopper, and a blade in the bushes in Ayanagar near MG Road in Gurgaon. They haven't been found yet. Items from their shared apartment in Chhatarpur were seized and taken for forensic examination. Upon investigation, they confirmed that the items were his, including the murder weapon. That's a knife, a hammer, and a pair of scissors. The mobile phone he had on the night of the killing, he sold on Amazon to a man named Ubaidullah. That has also been found by the police. He posted on Instagram pretending Shraddha had left him and called his friends with the same story. For weeks, he operated Shraddha's Instagram account to give the impression that she was still alive. To continue the charade, Aftab asked his new girlfriend to talk to Shraddha. When the woman called her, the phone was switched off. When she decided to message Shraddha instead, Shraddha replied back, and her message said she had broken up with Aftab after a fight and that she had left him and gone to Rishikesh. Later, they found that this reply was made by Aftab himself. He did everything he could to make it seem like she had run away. During the investigation, they of course found that this whole time when he was pretending that she had run away, her phone was still in the apartment in his possession. The biggest breakthrough in the case came when the bank statement of the couple's account, which showed that 54,000 rupees from Shraddha's account was transferred to Aftab's account on May 26. The transaction exposed Aftab's lies, in which he had earlier said that Shraddha was unreachable after May 22nd, and he did not meet her. Location of the bank transfer that took place on May 26 also turned out to be the Mehruli area where they live. Besides this, on May 31st, there was a chat with a friend from Shraddha's Instagram account. When the police found out the location of Shraddha's phone, it turned out near her apartment. All of Aftab's lies were finally found out. During this time, he maintained an active social life, dated several more women, and even brought some of them to the scene of crime. One of them, a psychiatrist by profession, said in her police statement she never suspected a thing when she visited his apartment. She was unaware that Shraddha's remains were still in the fridge. She received several gifts from him during their time together, like perfumes and a ring, which later found out to be Shraddha's. According to investigators looking into the case, Aftab communicated with nearly 20 other women via various dating websites. Aftab is currently in custody, facing murder charges awaiting trial. This month, it will be first anniversary of Shraddha Walker's death. This case garnered a lot of media attention because of the love jihad angle. I don't feel qualified to judge a case based on religious grounds. If it did have that angle, it is not for me to say. For I believe when one chooses to take a life, the responsibility ultimately lies with that individual himself. From my perspective, this case is a prime example of why domestic violence should never be taken lightly. This case also put live-in relationships in a bad light. There were those who blamed Shraddha for choosing to put herself in this situation, that somehow she was responsible for her own demise by choosing to be in a wrong kind of relationship. She went against her parents to live with a man of a different religion without the sanctum of marriage. So she somehow deserved what happened to her. There is a perception that she paid the price for being, quote unquote, too modern. Shraddha was a 24-year-old woman, financially independent. She had every right to choose her own life partner. It is unfortunate that the man she chose to trust turned out to be such a monster. Did she deserve to lose her life over it? Of course not. She found herself in a difficult situation. Why she chose to stay with him even after the physical abuse and death threats? Why did she not leave? Why do so many women and sometimes even men choose to stay in these toxic relationships? To my understanding, there is something called coercive control in domestic abuse situations. Domestic abuse isn't always only physical. Coercive control is an act of assault, threats, humiliation, and intimidation used to punish or frighten the victim. Abusers also prey on the victims by using their feelings as a weapon. For example, Shraddha's friend said she had in fact tried to leave Aftab before. She had come to live with them, but Aftab threatened to kill himself if she did not return to him. Believing this to be true, she went back each time, hoping that this time he would be different, like he promised. This controlling behavior is designed to make a person dependent by isolating them from support, exploiting them, depriving them of their independence. In each case of domestic violence, the victim endures a lot more than they should before deciding to get out. I believe that this is what happened to Shraddha. She wanted out, and Aftab wouldn't let that happen. He couldn't, so he killed her. My hope in talking about this case mainly is to keep Shraddha's story alive and also to raise what little awareness I can about domestic violence. I hope her killer gets the punishment he deserves. This was a particularly hard one to get through. If you have made it to the end with me, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I need your support. Until next time.